Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Of course, we'll be talking about the Prime Minister's visit as far as the SCO summit is concerned. Prime Minister called on the Shanghai Cooperation member states to build a wall against climate change. He spoke about the flood devastation in Pakistan. He drew the attention of the states to the fact that these rains have led to 30 million people and killed over, being displaced and killed over 1,500 people. We'll be talking about his various meetings with the Chinese president, the Russian president, Tajikistan, president of Tajikistan, Iran, president of Iran, Azerbaijan, all of these meetings that happened. Of course, the salient points of different interactions on the sidelines of the summit with different heads of state. He also spoke about the devastation in Pakistan, highlighting the role of regional cooperation, particularly because of the emerging global changes in the world. We've also seen he cautioned against, particularly against abandoning Afghanistan. We'll be talking about that overall, the background of the SC summit, the kind of goals, tangible goals that the government hopes to reach through these interactions. Having set the right kind of momentum for our interaction with these states. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Dr. Manzoor Afridi, who's a foreign affairs expert. Thank you for joining us. We also have with us MAHRUKH, who's a columnist. He is a senior analyst also. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Manzoor, like I said, of course, these interactions are extremely important with the Prime Minister speaking to heads of state, particularly Russian, Chinese, of course, Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, Russia, all of those interactions. How do you see the interactions, his meetings with these different heads of state, and the fact that, of course, climate change and the damage to climate change that we've seen as far as Pakistan is concerned in the background of the UN Secretary General's visit also remains paramount. Also, the regional cooperation also remained very much on the agenda of the Prime Minister's meetings. How do you look at it?
Well, now we are living in the age of globalization. This is an era of regional integration. If you see around the globe, so in various regions there are such initiatives have to bring various countries closer together. And for this purpose, regardless of any political system or ideological considerations, so all of the states almost they are very much willing and enthusiastic to be part of such initiatives. No doubt that Pakistan is no exception in this regard. Pakistan is already a part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is under the umbrella of the Belt and Road Initiative initiated by China. Also, Pakistan is a member of various international organizations and platforms, and Shanghai Cooperation Organization was one of them, where Pakistan initially joined it as observer. And now for the last 5 years, since 2017, it is a permanent member of the SCO. So very much important that now such kind of issues like climate change, global warming or environmental degradation, they should be on the agenda, on the table of such international platforms. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, it is really significant in this regard. If we see the history of SCO, so basically it was formed to eliminate the three evils. Those who are fundamentalism, extremism, and separatism. And no doubt that these three evils, they were confronting the Central Asian states, Russia and China.
Dr. Manzoor, I want to come back and talk more about regional peace and how relevant, like you are saying, the role of these interactions are. Let me go to MAHRUKH. Amir Saab, the timing of the summit itself, the timing of the meetings of the Prime Minister with other state heads, in the background of the devastation that we've seen, in the background of the visit of the UN Secretary General, how significant is this, considering, of course, that the Prime Minister said at the very outset that he would be primarily talking about the devastation due to climate change that Pakistan has seen. and of course the injustice of it, and also regional cooperation, those two being our primary, remaining primarily on his agenda, along with of course economic viability of these interactions, are exploring opportunities for us in economy.
I think this is an important visit in terms of devastation, as you put it rightly. But also, Pakistan has tremendous economic challenges right now.
Right.
Already we are losing like around $30 billion worth of losses because of the climate change impact, because of the floods and devastations. And I think this is an opportune moment for the country, the prime minister of the country to seek international support, not only to address the damages that Pakistan is suffering right now, but also the long-term economic stability of the country. Because we see that once we come out of this current crisis, the disaster situation, we will have to build our country, the economy, the infrastructure. Construction is an important part. From this side, economic integration, economic cooperation across the regions is important, and the Prime Minister's visit is significant in bringing home very important point that Pakistan needs economic support from its regional partners and the global community. And secondly, I think one of the most important and pressing need right now is to diversify the diplomatic the venues for taking forward the debate of climate change. The climate change is important debate for Pakistan because it's one of the most hard-hit countries in the world, the seventh most.
That's what I mean when I say that the timing of this and the fact that the Central Asian countries can now, of course, we know that they must have deliberated in these meetings, in these interactions on the sidelines also, between different state heads, of the kind of damage and the kind of vulnerability factor that this leaves all our, Central Asian states too. And the fact that, of course, we're talking about reparation, we're talking about climate responsibility of these emissions, which is what, the UN Secretary General also has been saying. You think all of those things will make a difference pursuant to these meetings again?
Absolutely, because you see, climate change is a transboundary issue. I mean, we live in a very fragile region, in particular the High Asia region, where the Central Asian states are there. China, we share our Indus Basin with China, with Afghanistan, with India and other countries. So there has to be a trans-boundary arrangement to address the climate issues. Pakistan needs these trans-boundary arrangements, this sort of this these sideline meetings and interaction with different states of the region will spell out a discourse for the country to come up with a trans-boundary and international regional cooperation to address the climate issues. This timing is also important, and I think the debate and discourse has to go out through senior level officials, and the Prime Minister is being the senior most in that sense. So I think this will have long-term impact, not only in terms of economic recovery, but also climate diplomacy going beyond simple the cooperation to build a long-term debate and also to create a regional support system, and which will also help international community to to pay more attention to the issue, because there are different lobbies in the world. The European economies and the Western economies have little sensitivity towards the developing countries. So the global South, the developing countries must come together to address their issues and to build a platform which will actually help address this issue of the North-South divide in the world. So I think this is an important step towards
Right.
that
Let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Manzoor ji. Dr. Manzoor, your in terms of how significant the Prime Minister's meetings with other state heads are, and how significant are they in the economic context? Of course, we've seen MOUs, there has been, but for this to translate into something tangible, we also saw the visit, the interaction with the Russian president, and the pipeline being something that, you know, is something we can work on. There's agreement on that at least. How far do you think this can go, in your opinion?
Well, economic diplomacy is now, that is getting momentum across the world, and South Asia is also there. I mean, if you look into the CPEC or even BCIM, Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar corridor, or some other initiatives, so then we can feel and we are optimistic about the future of this region. No doubt that this is, I mean, where we are living in this region. South Asia is one of the poor regions of the world. It is one of the least connected regions of the world. It is also one of the, you know, on the top, which is being hit by the climate change or environmental degradation issues. So for all these purposes, the leading countries, which Pakistan is one of the leading states in South Asia, they are enthusiastic to have such initiatives. As far as the question of Prime Minister's meetings with other heads of the states is concerned, and about the energy corridors or linkages, also the economic boosting of Pakistan with other countries. So I think this Central Asian region, on the one side, and on the other hand, China and Russia, these have potential, because Central Asian states, they have one of the largest hydrocarbon sources. So this region is minerals rich, resources rich region. So no doubt that Pakistan can get benefit from it. Already Pakistan is a signatory of the CASA 1000 project, if you include Afghanistan. So then that is called CASA, South Central Asia and South Asia 1300 project. So Pakistan is there. If you look into the TAPI, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline, so Pakistan is there. Even I think that was in 2015 when Pakistan's Prime Minister visited Turkmenistan, but because of insurgency or a kind of security issues or political instability in Afghanistan, it was not finalized. So
Afghanistan is particularly something that, you know, the Prime Minister highlighted his stance on Afghanistan and saying how we should not isolate Afghanistan and its ramifications for the region. That is something that has been consistent in our foreign policy. How do you look at this, and do you think that it's going to, I mean, of course, have a larger impact in the coming future for Pakistan and for Afghanistan, our relationship with Afghanistan and other countries in the region?
We have to look into, you know, in the backdrop of Taliban's coming into power and how they have formed the government. Yes, the Afghan government has not yet been recognized diplomatically, internationally. No diplomatic recognition has been extended. So look into this situation. I mean, that half then Afghanistan is surviving. Who is going to help? These regional countries, starting from Russia to Central Asia and then China, Pakistan, Iran and Turkey, these are the countries who wanted to have stability after the American withdrawal, after the signing of the Taliban and America, you know, treaty in Doha, that they wanted to help. Otherwise, these countries could also be affected. That is the spillover effect. Another thing, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, it has also very much concerned about Afghanistan. There is already a contact group of SCO on Afghanistan, which has held various, you know, such conferences or meetings how to solve the Afghan imbroglio. Another thing, the current government or rulers of Afghanistan, they are also want to have a regional kind of approach for the Afghanistan problem. They have tested, I mean, in the Karzai period or Dr. Ashraf Ghani's era, the Afghanistan has already tested the you know, a kind of a wholesome approach, international approach for Afghanistan issue, but I think it did not work. Now, what can work where the Afghan government is also confident, that is the regional approach. And I believe that
What
now...
about regional help? Let me come back to you. I'll go to Amir Saab on this, and then I'll come back to you. Amir Saab, what about regional countries helping Pakistan? Of course, Afghanistan isolation, again remains our narrative on not isolating Afghanistan remains consistent as far as Pakistan is concerned. As far as our foreign diplomacy in that regard is concerned, all over the world with all other states is concerned. Do you think that we can, as a region, we can work towards that in the background of this summit?
Yeah, I think one of the key political assumptions of such international summits is to work towards the regional stability. Afghanistan is in the Western typical. It was part of the Western strategic alliance in the past. Now, whatever has gone, and Afghanistan left to its own devices. Well, in this situation, there is no government, there is no stability, economy is not working. There are a lot of factions, at war. There are different laws, play a very disastrous role in the past. In this situation, I think some come forward to work for the democratic transition of
Let me
Afghanistan.
come back to you, Amir Sab. I think there's a slight problem with audio. Manzoor Sab, as far as Azerbaijan is concerned, let's talk about Azerbaijan to Chinese president also and Tajikistan. In terms of course, the finance minister was there, the defense minister was there, the foreign minister was there, the delegation of Pakistan, and they, exploring opportunities. How important is it, in your opinion, in terms of our opportunities, economic opportunities again? Because, as far as economy is concerned, certainly, it has been a cause of concern from the point go for this government when they came in. How do you look at this summit in that regard?
Pakistan was one of the first countries who recognized the Central Asian republics just after their independence back in the start of 1990s. And later on in the era of Benazir Bhutto and after that Nawaz Sharif, Pakistan's government tried, but unfortunately we were not able to cultivate strong and cordial relationship with the Central Asian republics. But now if we see at least for the last 10 to 12 years, Pakistan as well as the Central Asian republics, they are optimistic and they have developed their relations to a level where now there is good understanding between these two regions, South Asia and Central Asia.
I think it's the Russian president who recalled fondly his interaction with Nawaz Sharif Sahab also.
Yes.
So there has been a continuity of effort.
Continuity of efforts from there, Boris Yeltsin to Putin, then Dmitry Medvedev, then again Putin. Now again Putin is there. So Pakistan's growing relations with Russia, not only politically but also, the defense ties and more, as you talked, the economic perspective. I think that's important. Russia is also optimistic and enthusiastic to join the CPEC. Why it is necessary? Because it is deeply rooted in the Chinese cause, in the Russian cause and motives to have access to the warm waters, the Indian Ocean. And what I think and believe, the easiest way, shortest way, that is going through Pakistan, so Pakistan is the best option. The Central Asian republics, historically, religiously, culturally, we have so many linkages. Centuries ago, there was a caravan, path which was connecting today's Pakistan with those of Central Asian republics. So we can revitalize it. Central Asian republics, also Russia, they are part of the BRI. There is Eurasian corridor. There is China Central Asia corridor. There is also China, Mongolia and Russia corridor, and there is China Pakistan economic corridor. So there is a bunch of corridors, or we can say a collection of corridors, which can bring these countries together, and these corridors have just joint have made a bond between Central Asian republics and Pakistan. So I believe that in coming coming future and very near future that we can have strong relations with Central Asian republics, also with Russia. And
perhaps a joint diplomacy on issues like climate change, which will have an impact for everyone in the world.
That is,
which make us, leave us particularly vulnerable.
That is important. If you look to the success story of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they have almost eliminated the three evils where SCO or predecessor of it, Shanghai 5, was formed. I mean, separatism, fundamentalism, and extremism, and their border tranquility and peace, stability on their borders. They have done. Now, about the joint military exercises among the members of the SCO, Pakistan was also there. Russian forces also visited Pakistan, and they held such military drills some 3-4 years back at now Shahrukh, Pakistan. So these are the success stories. So about the climate change, yes, they can do, because climate change or global warming, there is not the concern or issue or problem of one country. It is now global agenda. And let me tell you, I think, if we look back into some 40 or 50 years back, climate change or global warming, those were not on the agenda of any state's foreign policy. But now climate change is everywhere. That is in everywhere. It is a kind of cornerstone of every state's foreign policy. So Pakistan is there. Another, as I explained before, that South Asia is one of the regions of the world which is hit by global warming and also climate change. So these countries, they can join hands together, and they will, and they are very much enthusiastic about it. And I'm sure, believe that on the one side, if they will have excellence in to bring traditional security to their countries, but on the other hand, the non-traditional security, what we can call it as human security, I mean the environmental improvement and the climate change, they can work together.
Right. Let me go to Abdul Jalil, who is a senior economist. Thank you for being with us, Jalil Sab. We're talking about the impact of the summit, the interactions between Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and other heads of state, and their impact economically, in terms of, and globally as far as climate change is concerned. In regional interactions, the impact that they will have, tangible gains for Pakistan. What is your opinion on those?
Thank you very much. First, I would like to seek apology because I was caught in a very big traffic jam, so I could not read.
Thank you for making.
Okay, sorry. And now the impact of this meeting is going to have a far-reaching effect on our socio-economic sector as well as on the climatology of this region as well. As far as the socio-economic impact is concerned, I think number one is that the issue is Shanghai Convention represent those countries which are in fact a major economic and a political power in this region as well. And it includes China and Russia, which are a big military power, right? Holding a big status in the international politics as well. Number one. Secondly, I would like to say that we are heading towards a new socio-economic order, hopefully, which will, in fact,
which is more integrated, because of course it's a post-COVID world.
Yes, which would bring about this economic integrity and connectivity within this region as well. This is very important.
Right. Let me come back to you. On that note, I want to go to Ishfaq Tola, who's a senior economist. Ishfaq sir, in terms of how tangible this interaction, in terms of how it will translate into tangible results for Pakistan in terms of economy, as far as the region is concerned, as far as our regional interactions are concerned. The Prime Minister was very categorical about, he stressed on there being an integration, regional integration between these states. He talked about not isolating Afghanistan, along with climate change and flood damage that Pakistan has seen. Will we be able to translate this into tangible gains for us economically, first of all?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much for having me in your show. But actually, I mean, the thing is that these types of conferences, they end up nowhere, and at the end just end up in a statement which is a ray of hope for everyone. Let me just tell you very frankly that if we want to really translate it, we have to just look at and address our foreign policy. Basically, in the past, it's like a roller coaster for us that we change our foreign policies more frequent than we change our troops. So we have to be very cautious about how to move about it. I mean, like yesterday, the Prime Minister met Mr. Putin, the Russian president, and we were discussing about the Russian gas through pipeline. So I think, I mean, if there is any sanction and if we are talking about it, it will obviously raise the eyebrows of our donor countries and friend countries. I think IMF will take a cognizance, and I think in a way we are going in a trouble. So I think we have to be very cautious about it because of the fact that the recent floods have compounded the miseries of Pakistan as far as the economy is concerned. 35% of my cotton crop has gone down the drain, and we have to import that cotton in order to stable my exports and reach that level. So there are so many ifs and buts, and I think let us see where we can translate it, how we can behave as far as the foreign policy is concerned. And I know for sure that Pakistan is emitting only 1% of the gases, whereas the catastrophe we have faced is really astronomical, and the losses are phenomenal. So I think we are at the receiving end at this juncture, and we have to make this world realize that please help us. And today it is we are, that tomorrow it can be anyone else.
Let me come back to you, Ashfaq Sahab. On that note, I want to go to Amir Sahab. Amir Sahab, what Ashfaq Sahab is saying, he's saying consistency is important. But as far as our interaction with the Russian president is concerned, the gas pipeline is concerned, in the background of what we've seen as far as our relationship with America is concerned, or our interaction with the IMF, and of course the background economically of that area is concerned, do you think that there's inconsistency there? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we have to, the Prime Minister has a kind of indication from his discussion that we are very cautious to, engage with Russia and other global regional powers like China and others, because the backdrop of IMF standby loan and all that, and the continuous reliance on the strategic support and all that for the Western countries and our trade partners and the market share and all that. But I think there is another growing realization across the region as well, that there is no times of Cold War. The Russia was once a arch rival to the Western bloc, but suddenly, I mean, because of this this war that is going on, there is an energy crisis, and even some European countries are now, because there is internal pressure from their public, going energy crisis.
When we talk about our interactions, with different countries, of course, what should remain on top of the agenda for us is our own interest, our own regional interest, our own economic interest, our own, strategically what's important for Pakistan. And I think that is what's paramount, what is foremost on the agenda for the Prime Minister and the government at the time. Let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Manzoor Afridi. Manzoor Sahab, let's go back and talk a little bit about the climate change diplomacy, and of course this summit, because for the Prime Minister, he stressed on the fact that we need to talk about this more. We need to bring the world's notice to what's happened. And I think the way that the UN Secretary General rallied behind Pakistan, he didn't just talk about help for Pakistan. He talked about climate change, climate damage responsibility, and asking the concept of the nations taking responsibility, reparation, even debt swap, things like this were talked about. Do you think that as far as this diplomacy is concerned, it will help Pakistan? Do you think that this will, because it's not an isolated world, we are post-COVID, and if that hasn't made us realize how connected the world is and how, you know, one state cannot remain disconnected, any one state, from the plight of another in this kind of a global you know, world at this time, which is what we've seen in the recent past.
Exactly. This is interdependent world. And now in the era of interdependence, a large state can be dependent on smaller, as well as a richer can be on poor, as well as European and American on Asian and African states. So why? Because this is called, you know, a term is used, shared responsibility.
Right.
What the UN Secretary General stressed for, that is that we have to tackle these issues together. So climate change diplomacy is really important. We have seen the swine flu and even polio. Polio is also even today that is our concern in Pakistan and some other countries, and also the COVID-19. So the human being has seen this disaster.
The interconnectivity of the world, Jalil Sahab, I'll come back to you. Jalil Sahab, the interconnectivity of the world is not, you know, we can't shy away from that, and the world can't shy away from that, whether it's the global north or whether it's any other countries and their role, and the role of carbon emissions, the fact that Pakistan bears less than 1% of all of that. Do you think that the world will realize this? Do you think that we
I
will
think we have got no alternative but to accept the geographical realities, these bitter realities. The sooner we do it, the better it is. Number, as far as the economic and the socio-economic development is concerned, it depends a lot upon the how much you contribute to ensure the clean environment in your country or in your region as well, because the weather, the climate, it's not confined within the border limitations. It's the international, you know, the factors, and it's a regional factors.
But
right?
Responsibility,
And
you know,
responsibility, you know, number one,
the share of responsibility.
yeah, this is, as UN Secretary General have said, and a lot of debate is going on, that who's responsible for bringing a climate destruction in the developing country. They are only bearing the consequences of the earlier policy adopted under colonialism and imperialism in their own country. Recklessly they have used natural resources and they have polluted the environment. As a result of it, now we are suffering. It has
Reckless,
caused...
that's the word, reckless. And so someone has to take responsibility
No,
for that kind
yes,
of recklessness.
it needs an integrated and a cosmopolitan approach on the part of the big organization, donor agency, and the leading power. If we do not take a precautionary, you know, policy today, and if we not adopt a pro-climate friendly policy, tomorrow our generation is going to pay a very heavy price for it. This is what, and this price will run into many generations. It will bring about the erosion of the land. Heavy floods would occur time and again, which will pull out and destroy your entire investment. It would bring about the deforestation
And it
of
has
the
the
country.
potential of damaging,
And
you
then
know,
the
the
environment
world.
and the global environment and global warming itself has become a big menace as well. So this is an important factor which has to be considered while we are adopting our socio-economic policy. As far as Russia is concerned, I believe that Russia has a very important role to play in future in our socio-economic development. Russia is a breadbasket of the world, Russia and the Ukraine. Unfortunately, they are fighting
But
a
they're not
war.
mutually exclusive, right?
Achha,
When we talk
but-
about, you know, our interaction with the Russian president, we talk about the IMF and its role.
The question is that first we have to make we have to take a first step in this respect. I would like to say that we have not set up a joint banking system there. At least the currency, ruble currency should be available, and with the help of, now the Russians have opened their market. You can purchase wheat, you can purchase energy without dollar, currency. You can purchase them within Russian national currency. And Russian banks are ready to give you loan as well in this respect. So this is, I would say, that these are the alternatives which are available with us. Unfortunately, I would say that our policy is suffering from some kind of imbalances. We need to bring imbalances. Russia is already committed to development of a gas pipeline in our country, number one. Secondly, we need their support to upgrade and restructure and make it more, restructure our steel mill corporation, which is
Right.
in fact, which carries a huge potential for the development of this country as well. Then the China is another big neighbor for us. And the Chinese are very faithful friend of Pakistan. And
China,
the time
of course, yes.
Yes, and the time and again they are ready to absorb the surplus of Pakistan, provided we could produce it. Surplus in agriculture, surplus in our, surplus in our heavy, if not in heavy engineering, in light engineering products at least, but we are not producing them. Unfortunately, our suffering has started because of the high cost of the energy.
As
Because
far as
of our
Iran is
inability,
concerned, particularly-
to manage our water resources as well. We have not developed, dams. Dams should have been developed, and not one or two, big and small. We should have developed a lot of to manage the inflow and outflow of the water. And today we are facing a huge catastrophe.
That's true. That's true. Jalil Saab, let me come back to you. Amir Saab, can you hear me? Amir Saab, you need to unmute yourself.
I think I'm.
Gee, now I can hear you. Amir Saab, when we talk about our relationship with Iran, of course the Prime Minister met the President of Iran also, and there has been our ability to import some as far as goods from Iran is concerned as an alternative. That is something the government has talked about. That is something that we've moved forward on. Things like that, of course, furthering that kind of relationship with partners like Iran, regional partners like Iran, is something that was also on the agenda. How important and significant do you see this meeting?
Well, I think the economic crisis tells us that we have to now go out of the box thinking, in political and economic, both dimensions. Our conventional wisdom on politics and diplomacy was to stay away from many regional countries. Now I think we have to revisit. We know that our economic crisis is much deeper than to be addressed through IMF only. We have to create our own domains of economic recovery. Iran is one of the options. Russia is another option because we need energy and people energy. We need Chinese. So you see, if we have a larger regional, integration without damaging our relationship with America and Western countries, which is possible, and many countries do that, because we have to set the priorities. The priority number one right now is the recovery of economy, and also that will come through regional, durable and sustainable, partnerships, and these are one of the prospects that we can also we can also communicate to the world that it is not only about being unidimensional, dependent on some Western countries. It has to be a multidimensional relationship, and I think there is a growing realization across the region, because Russia is coming closer to Pakistan, China is our friend, Iran wants to build some inroads for economic exchanges, which is a good omen for Pakistan. And it is now the real test of policymakers, the political leadership, to strike a balance between the relationship in the West and also considering the economic recovery priority for the country. I think if we play with the balance, this is going to help a lot. And if we go back to conventional wisdom and then try to go back and try to
let me go to, we're running out of time. Manzoor Saab, your comments before we close, your concluding remarks on the summit, the Prime Minister's role with the different heads of state, his interactions. How would you sum it up?
Well, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, its it is playing its role in an excellent way, looking into its history. Second, Pakistan is also has active diplomacy, not only for traditional security but also to tackle the non-traditional security threats like the climate change. And third, if our neighborhood is prosperous, if there is stability, then of course we will also have stability, and we will
Isolation
also
is certainly not an option, and Jalil
not
Saab, you would
possible.
agree, you have to agree on that. There is
think
no
that
other option but integration, regional integration,
yes,
which is what the Prime Minister talked
I
about.
believe that the ruling spirit of the Shanghai Cooperation must be upheld, that is promoting regional connectivity. And this is a big challenge for us now, which should be met by seeking closer agricultural, economic, socio-economic relationship with China as well as with Russia as well. And then,
And of course, Tajikistan.
of course,
you
Central
know,
Asia is
Central
very important
Asia
for
is,
us.
yes,
They are our
of
next door
course.
neighbor.
Iran,
But,
you know, of course,
uh,
other than China,
yes.
those are other heads of state that the Prime
Regional
Minister met with. He had
yeah.
fruitful, you know, fruitful interaction with all of these countries and their heads of state, and of course, integration, regional integration has been talked about. The role of different in Central Asian countries working in tandem with each other
Yes.
is also really important.
That's why I would always say that the CPEC projects, they are very important for Pakistan to bring a real new momentum in the development of the regional activity.
Right,
It
I
would
think on
create a
that note-
network in this entire region.
Right, on that note, thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Manzoor Afridi. Thank you for joining us. Abdul Jalil Saab, thank you for joining us. Amir Hussain Saab, thank you for your time. Ishfaq Tola Saab, thank you for your input. The Prime Minister said, leaving Samarkand on a satisfactory note, there is now renowned awareness about the potent threat of climate change. The SCO countries understand it is capable of reversing all our material development and pushing us backward by decades. All the more reason for a united front. Of course, as far as he has clearly said that there is need for a united front to combat the kind of climate damage that is unprecedented, that has been seen in Pakistan, and therefore will impact the region also in terms of food security, in terms of inflation, in terms of economic factors, and for all regional countries to work together and try to further the cause of minimizing climate damage and working towards the concept of reparation, the concept of responsibility, climate damage responsibility, which needs to be adhered to. Thank you so much for joining us today on Press.